You might be wondering why Australians are so frightened of China. Recently, the Australia Institute conducted a poll comparing the perceptions of Australians with the perceptions of people in Taiwan. We found that Australians are much more likely to be afraid of China than people in Taiwan are. There are more Australians who think that China will attack Australia soon than there are Taiwanese who think that China will attack Taiwan soon. This represents a really great divergence in threat perception. When you consider why it is that Australians are more afraid than Taiwanese, you're forced to two conclusions. The first is that Australians do respond to their media, and that the more the media talk up a problem, the more Australians respond to it. And the second reason is that the Taiwanese people actually understand China. They are Chinese people themselves, and they have exposure to the 3,000 years of China's social, political and economic development. Australia, though, we know very little about China. We don't speak Chinese, we don't know much about China's culture or history, and the result of that is that we have misperceptions of China, whereas the people of Taiwan, they have perceptions of China based on cultural history. That's a big problem for Australia, and until we fix that, we're going to remain afraid of China. So what our polling has discovered is that the more you beat the anti-China drum, the more frightened people become of China. This is a pretty sad commentary on the way in which our political leaders have looked at the Australia-China relationship over the last 5 years or so. When senior politicians and senior public officials come out with expressions like the drums of war are beating, or that China is a threat to Australia, or China wishes to take Australia over militarily, of course the electorate is going to become disturbed and become afraid. This is a tribute to the fact that the electorate, by and large, does pay attention to what its politicians say, and if its politicians generate fear, then of course the electorate will be fearful. So the challenge of the incoming Albanese government is to turn that fear around so that Australian perceptions of China are based on fact rather than fear, and are based on a clear perception of what our interests are in our relationship with China and what China's interests are in its relationship with us. And it seems to me that there are three very important things that need to be done. First of all, we need our government to talk to the Chinese government in a much more regular and frank way than has happened over the last 5 years or so. Let's hope that at the G20, Prime Minister Albanese is able to talk to his counterpart. So that's the first thing that's got to happen. Get back into dialogue. The second thing that's got to happen, I think, is that China itself has got to be much clearer in its messaging towards Australia. It will be important that China lifts its trade embargoes and that China itself takes a much less hysterical approach to commentary on its relationship with Australia. And the third thing that needs to happen is that at the people-to-people level, we've got to get back into talking to each other. We need the students to come back into Australia because that's where the future of our relationship lies, in our young people, and we need Australians to return to China both for business and for leisure. Most importantly, I think it is that our media representatives need to return to Beijing so that we have Australians reporting on China to the Australian community. That would go such a long way towards relieving these perceptions of fear. And for those of you who may be interested in the details of Australia Institute's polling, please visit the Australia Institute's website, where you will find a press release and the detailed results available for downloading.